Paper was like gold in medieval times.
Oh, not tobacco. Sugar.
That everything we thought we knew about the world might turn out to be completely wrong.
What was it, Ian? If it wasn't a ghost, what was it?
She bears on them very quickly. She turns quickly with this hideous face.
There are two spirits in this building, I believe. But the one down here is not at all friendly.
It's just a different feeling comes over you. It's almost as if you think something bad could happen to you.
These stories are some of the strangest experiences ever described in the UK. We can't tell if they're true, but they are all recounted by ordinary people. Now they are your witnesses. Bluebell Hill in Kent, a local beauty spot that harbours a mysterious secret. Over the last 30 years, there have been over 20 reported sightings of ghostly figures in the roads around the hill.
A road ghost could be any kind of ghostly activity that manifests on our roads. That could include vehicles, people, even animals. The first recorded sightings, which are really nothing more anecdotes at that stage, begin really in 1967. This is 2 years after a fatal car crash on the hill in which 3 young women died. Thereafter, there was one in 68, a prominent one in 74, and pretty well a gap up to 1977, where we have another named witness encounter. In the earliest reports relating to Bluebell Hill, involving the phantom hitchhiker, the girl who'd wait by the roadside, she was a young woman, often described with fair hair and light clothing, a Macintosh, something of that nature. And the earliest reports describe her entering the car and describing excitedly the wedding that she was going to be at the next day. She's due to be married the following day. In some other versions, it's been a supposed bridesmaid talking excitedly about her friend's wedding.
But Ian Sharp knew nothing of these reported sightings as he drove home late one night in 1992. Coming down Bluebell Hill, he thought he saw a woman in the road.
When I first saw her, she was standing in the centre of the road by the crash barrier, just standing there. And I was driving down, I was doing about 50 miles an hour. And as I saw her, I started to brake. And then she just sort of, not run, but a fast walk straight out in front of the car. And I hit her, and it seems as if everything went into slow motion. She went under the car, and as she went down, I hit her on her left-hand side, and as I hit her, she was looking at me, eye to eye, straight at me.
Ian jammed on the brakes, but when he got out to help, the woman had vanished. Who or what had stepped out in front of the car? He went straight to the police to report the accident.
When I came back with the police, not knowing anything of this accident that happened 27 years beforehand, I was still convinced there was somebody laying somewhere, and we had the police had torches and they were looking all around and couldn't find anything at all. And it was the policeman then who told me it's another sighting of the Bluebell Hill ghost.
To Ian, I'm sure this was absolutely a totally shockingly real experience. He observed this woman some way ahead, 1,700 yards ahead. It was, I believe, at 10 to midnight on the 8th of November, Sunday, and he was doing around about 50 miles an hour. And he saw this woman under very good observational conditions, with overhead carriageway lights. A few years before, Bluebell Hill was totally dark, so he had good time to see this woman, be sure of what he saw, not be mistaken, and he was more attuned to what her behaviour was going to be than what she was.
For Ian, The mystery deepened when paranormal researcher Sean Tudor began investigating his sighting.
He brought a book with him. All the police files were in the book, and different pictures and picture of the car. And he said, would I like to look at the pictures of the 4 women who were in the car? And when I was looking at the pictures in Sean's book, the 3rd picture that I came to was, I just froze. And Sean took the book away from me, and I said, that's the girl that I hit.
It's not surprising that the 65 car crash should be the focus for the ghost stories that grew up thereafter. We want to assume a connection between tragic or untimely death and hauntings. The encounters at Bluebell Hill are quite varied. There are 3 characters that are routinely seen, so we can break them down into a young child in the age group of 10 to 13. That immediately differs with some of the descriptions of women in their 20s who were the victims of the 1965 car crash, for one. So we have young women in their 20s, a young girl, and most bizarrely, in 1993, and in some subsequent accounts that have come along from different dates, an old haggard woman in dark clothing. This is a character who's hunched in the middle of the road, waiting for the vehicle in a similar manner. But as the vehicle slows and approaches with her in the middle of the road, she bears on them very quickly. She turns quickly with this hideous face with beady eyes and a black maw of a mouth, and hisses at them.
Some people have seen an old woman running up and down the hill, and someone else has seen a woman floating across with no legs.
Could these reported sightings be related to the fatal crash in '65? Bluebell Hill had been a sacred site for thousands of years. Is this linked to the women's presence? Or could there be a psychological reason behind these phenomena?
Bluebell Hill has a stock of legends, not surprisingly, long before the Phantom Hitchhiker or the modern spate of encounters.
Many of the ghost reports and spirit reports around the country, particularly in the open air, and that includes the Phantom Hitchhiker reports of places like Bluebell Hill and so on, are also happening in areas where you have a very ancient, you have stone circles, you have runic stones and so on, and they often happen in proximity to those. And there is a feeling that actually what the witnesses are doing is tuning in some way to this ancient history of the site.
When we look at places like Bluebell Hill, we have a natural of sanctity marked by the Neolithic ancestors who 4,000 years ago revered the site enough to build their constructions, their monoliths and stone circles. In more recent times, we come to the Romans, there's a site of a Roman temple on Bluebell Hill, so it was obviously a place that was held in the minds to be something special.
Are the sightings somehow linked to ancient legend? Or could there be a more modern explanation?
The Phantom Hitchhiker phenomenon appears to be not exactly unique, but it has some interesting characteristics, one of which is to do with hypnopompic and hypnagogic imagery. As you go in or out of normal sleep, it's the point at which you're really susceptible to hallucination. And this may happen with highway hypnosis. When you're driving, you may get into a kind of altered state of almost trance-like state. You're aware, but you're not quite with it. And when you move out of that state, because the car has to be adjusted in some way, or direction and so on, you have to turn a corner, then it may be that you come out of that state and you are prone to hallucinations.
It's my belief that at places like Bluebell Hill, where the two come together, where we have a history of reverence by ancient peoples, even today it has an aura about it which people tend to mark as unusual, plus this switched off state, which is the night driving condition. The two coming together make it a prime area for road ghost activity to occur.
Albert Budden, a researcher into electromagnetic fields, has also looked into this hypnosis theory.
It's a kind of highway hypnosis. It's also known as highway hypnosis, where visual stimuli fed in through the windscreen again and again in a darkened situation will create an effect called habituation. This is where these monotonous stimuli fed into the brain repeatedly will cause the brain to switch off. The brain can be triggered by electromagnetic fields, can be triggered spontaneously, people can have hallucinations, and the electromagnetic fields can also alter the environment.
Apart from the ancient stones around Bluebell Hill, there are, of course, very modern artefacts, such as the BBC transmitters, such as ordinary power lines and so on. And there is a whole school of study in this area that those power sources can literally scramble the signals in the brain and create hallucinations and so on.
In actual fact, I've had cases where there have been 2 or more people who have been in an electromagnetic hotspot, and they have all reported the same phantom perceptions.
The mind's important. Are we talking about this woman imagine this form? If so, then lots of people who've heard nothing about Bluebell Hill are imagining the same thing in the same location, the same description, the same pattern of events, and there obviously is a mystery there. Whether it's related to ghosts as we might understand them is another matter, but there's obviously something there that's worthy of exploration.
So are these sightings the result of hallucinations, highway hypnosis and electromagnetic radiation? Or could there really be ghosts haunting the roads of Bluebell Hill?
The figures seen on Bluebell Hill are ghosts in as much as they appear to be figures that are not actually there in the way that we would perceive ourselves to be there, but where they come from, we don't know.
I can't convince myself that there's ghosts. But then the other hand says, well, what was it, Ian? If it wasn't a ghost, what was it?
There are 2 spirits in this building, I believe. But the one down here is not at all friendly.
It's almost as if you think something bad could happen to you.
In 1995, a small group gathered in this suburban London house to try and discover the cause of a series of paranormal events. Scenes like this are not uncommon, but these events had not been taking place in an ancient castle or a Victorian cellar. The manager of the nursery at this community centre in an ordinary London suburb wishes to remain anonymous.
When we first come here with the children and the staff, it was just quite a normal setting. And then one day, some big cars, like coupe cars, started moving across the room by themselves. The children actually saw the coupe car moving and notified one of the staff. They said, look, the car's moving by themselves. So the staff, in order not to sort of frighten the children, we actually made out we were pulling it by string. We call our ghost Russell. He tends to help us, and I actually think he protects us. I mean, there's been burglaries here where things have been on tables ready to go out the door and nothing's been taken. And I feel that Russell's probably shown himself and frightened off the burglars.
Workers at the community centre soon accepted the strange but harmless occurrences. They even nicknamed the friendly ghost Russell, thanks to the frequent but unexplainable sounds of rustling paper. Staff would often arrive at work to find the kettle already boiling, or the TV mysteriously turning itself on and off.
Once we saw that there was a frequency of what was happening, we started doing a log of dates, times, and incidents that were occurring. We would put the day, the time, and there was lots of different incidents, from the cars going around the room to noises to what sounded like tables falling around the building, and you'd go into the room and nothing was there.
In 1994, I became the local beat officer for the area. I came and reintroduced myself to the staff here, Pauline and Dawn. They offered me a cup of tea, and while I was having the tea, I noticed on a metal cabinet an A4 sheet of paper saying Russell's done this and Russell's done that. And I said, well, Pauline, who's this Russell you keep mentioning? Oh, that's our local ghost. I said, you are kidding me, it's a lot of baloney. Very, very sceptical of all of this, you know. I didn't believe any of it. So we did a ghost watch here. One of my colleagues and a few other people came along. We turned up and we had various people in various rooms. I was allocated the main canteen area. And then a few things started to happen. It's about 1 o'clock in the morning, and we're sitting there, and suddenly there's a loud ticking noise in front of us. And it's sort of moving around the room. And the girls asked me about it. I said, oh no, it's just a clock in the corner down there. And then I remembered that the clock hadn't got batteries in it, and that the kids from the youth club had actually tied the two hands together. So it couldn't have been that. At that point, I started to get very jittery. We then heard, in this room we're in now, which is a wit's room, we could hear the wits downstairs rolling about the floor. Now that part of the building was locked up. Didn't have a key for it. There was no one down here. As you've seen yourself, it's well secured from the back. No one could have got in, but you could hear the wits rolling about and being lifted and dropped. Now that really did frighten me. And it was then I started to realize, well, there's more to this than meets the eye.
Paul Doran's skepticism was blown away by his ghost watch experiences. Desperately searching for a rational explanation, he called in paranormal investigators from ASAP, the Association for the Scientific Study of Anomalous Phenomenon.
The purpose of coming to here is not, in fact, to try to prove that ghosts and spirits and poltergeists exist. That would be a far too pointed a way for us to approach our work. What we come here to try and do is be open-minded about what might happen, about what has happened, and to bring some scientific rigour to the examination of that. Having put a team together, basically what we do is we come in to stake out the place, if you like. We'll call them vigils and so on, and that would include us positioning people in different parts all over the building, controlling the environment so that, for example, we know that no one else can enter the building, we know where we are at any given time, and we even have what's called an EMU, an environmental monitoring unit, which monitors the whole building while we're in it. We try and bring in a balance of viewpoints. So we bring in believers who believe fervently that, that ghosts and spirits are the dead, etc. We bring in as sceptical a bunch of people as we can do as well, so that rather than trying to sort of investigate from the point of view of something we already believe in, we already come in ready to argue with each other in the most constructive way possible.
During several overnight vigils, the investigators witnessed a series of unexplainable events. These strange occurrences were consistent with the stories they'd been hearing from the staff at the centre.
An incident I recall was in the gym area down here when there was a punch bag hanging from the ceiling, motionless, and we would always steady anything like that. We would always make sure the environment was controlled. And this punch bag just started swinging. Now, again, we did have the environment controlled. No one was near it. No one should have been able to move it from physically walking about near it or anything of that sort of thing. And yet, spontaneously, it seems to have started. It's very difficult to explain that. We're underground here, so wind doesn't really come into it. The place would have been closed up properly. The walls are very, very thick here. So that one, again, we thought was something quite strange.
A key discovery by the ASAP team confirmed what workers at the centre had already suspected. Russell, the friendly ghost upstairs, was not the only presence. There was another source of the eerie events in the basement, which did not appear to be quite so affable.
In this building upstairs, there's an atmosphere. It's friendly. It's like Casper, your friendly ghost from the movie. But you come down here, it's very oppressive down here. Can be very frightening down here. And be honest with you, I don't want to be down here. There are two spirits in this building, I believe, but the one down here is not at all friendly.
When you go downstairs, it's just a different feeling comes over you. It's almost as if you think something bad could happen to you.
On a couple of occasions when it has been very, very oppressive, and I have just gone back up those stairs as fast as my legs would carry me because I don't want to be down here. I do not want to be down here. It's fine being down here with a lot of people, but being down here, one or two of you, when you walk down those stairs and you come into this room, or you go into that boiler room, and the temperature drops, you know there's something wrong.
We decided to do a Ouija board. The reason of this was to try and find out who actually was in the building.
They cajoled me into taking part, and I thought, yeah, well, fair enough, I'll sit down here with them. So I sat down with them, thinking to myself, well, I'll see who's pushing this glass around this board the hardest. That was my whole idea, was this is going to be a hoax. Sat down, and suddenly they've started the ball rolling, and then it comes through a message for Paul, and I'm going, yeah. And then we just said, well, who is it? And then suddenly that glass took off, and it shot across that board, PC149Q. My best friend in the police had died a few years before, and that was his shoulder number. Now, no one around that table or in that building at that time knew who he was or what his shoulder number was. And at that point, I jumped up from the table. I'd gone pure white. I was shaking like a leaf. I grabbed hold of a metal cabinet that was there, and I just held on to it until I stopped shaking. And I refused to go back into that circle.
No one in the centre has ever been hurt by any of the extraordinary events, but they continue to trouble the staff to this day.
I haven't got an answer to why they're here. I don't know. I think they're asking for help, in my opinion. I'd be very sad to lose Russell. Although when you walk in the building sometimes by yourself you shiver and shake, I actually think of him as a friend. The other spirit downstairs, I would just like to see shot of. I've got no qualms about that one.
With a lot of the paranormal, you're also down to the witness. You're down to how much you trust the witness. And I found the witnesses here to be totally trustworthy people, including the policeman involved and including the manager of the centre. I had no reason to doubt their honesty. So I think something real was happening here.
During my time in the police service, I've had knives pulled on me. I've been beaten up. I've had guns pulled on me. I've been frightened then, but not as frightened as I am of this stuff.